No,
And I also see new faces. Can I say hi to you, Joshua? Who are you? Where are you from? Unmute yourself, and we can hear you.
I was unmuting myself, but it just didn't want to work. Technology didn't want to work with me. So
welcome.
Hi, I'm Joshua. I'm from Rotterdam.
No.
Yeah. So can I assume that you're also from Rotterdam? I heard a big no.
Close. Scheveningen.
Scheveningen. Oh, what are you doing inside? It's outside. It's sunny. You know, it's looking like
Jim.
a day.
It's for Jim. Jim is going to say something to us. He's going to share his knowledge.
It's going to get bright and sunny in here, so that's what we're all doing.
Aha. But I'm very curious to see what goes on in the Wednesday Web Jam.
You'll know.
We're gonna get some jobs done today, right? Or something like that.
And hi, Robert. You brought your son, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, we've come to say hello to some old mates.
Oh.
Aha. Hello.
How old is he now?
He's turning 2 in April. He's an Easter baby.
Oh.
Do they not have, are the barber shops not open down there, Robert?
That's rich coming from you.
Good point. Yes, absolutely. Cool. Welcome, everybody. We've got a couple of minutes before we're going to get started. Super excited about today. Jobs.
Oh. Is that the Wookiee?
Hi, Mark. Hello, everybody.
Hey, Denny.
How are you? Axel.
Good.
Hello, Axel. How are you?
I'm fine, Danny. Thank you.
Hi, Axel. Welcome back.
Yes, hi.
We got people coming in. Oh, goodness.
Hey,
Daryl's
Daryl.
here from Singapore. Wouter, welcome.
Hello, from the Netherlands.
Goedenavond.
Goedemiddag.
Goedemiddag. Ja. Oké.
Goedemorgen bij jou.
Goedemorgen bij mij, ja.
I see Christina.
Oh, you're talented.
See Christina NZ. Christina, are you in New Zealand?
Yes.
What town are you in New Zealand? You're not
5
sure?
o'clock.
No,
5
where,
o'clock in
I'm
the
sorry.
morning.
Whoa.
Oh, that's commitment.
Yeah.
Where are you located?
Just outside the capital of Wellington.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Nice.
I used to live in Hamilton.
Nice spot.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, welcome. Have you been with us before, Christina?
No, so this is my first time.
Okay. Did you have a cup of coffee? Have you had your coffee or your tea yet this morning?
Honestly, I've got everything lined up.
Awesome. Well, you're in a different day already, I guess, right?
I'm in your tomorrow.
You're in my tomorrow.
Calling
The
from
future.
Just calling from the future.
Cool.
Yes, the sun's still going to come up.
Well, we are at the top of the hour, folks, and anybody who has been to a Wednesday Web Jam before, and many of the folks look familiar, we're going to have a lot of people streaming in here over the coming minutes to be part of today's Web Jam. We are going to go ahead and get started, and our ritual is that those moments that we just had of having people flow in and having a little banter, before we get into the formal programming, we always like to inform people that a couple of norms for Wednesday Web Jam. Please keep your microphone muted unless you're speaking. That way we don't hear the car noises and other embarrassing noises that may interfere with our guest for the day. And then also, please note that this Wednesday Web Jam is being recorded. It's being simulcast on YouTube. If you do not want your image captured, you should turn your video off. You are essentially consenting for us to use your image otherwise. And same goes with your voice. If you do not want your voice recorded for eternity, then do not speak. You are welcome to use the chat. We will be using the chat to sort of communicate with you as a back channel throughout today's Wednesday Web Jam. We're super excited to get started. So today's guest is Jim Kalbach. He has written a book about jobs to be done and a bunch of other things. He's here to talk to us about jobs to be done, something that's near and dear to my geeky engineer heart, and also my designer, my designer heart. I should say my engineer is probably my head and my designer is probably my heart. I'm not really sure. But Jim's going to take us through an activity using Mural. So many of you know Mural, and Jim actually works at Mural. He's their chief something. He'll introduce himself real quick. And then so today's sequence is we're going to hear about jobs to be done. We're going to roll into a Mural activity and do that in breakout groups. And then we'll be coming back, have a little bit of discussion. And then anybody who knows Wednesday Web Jam realizes or knows that we have an hour of programming from now until the top of the hour. And then we have another half an hour, what we call the backstage. And you're welcome to stick around for that. We'll turn off the YouTube and it's more of an formal chat. And Jim will be around for that to answer questions. Right, Jim? You're going to stick around, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome sauce. Okay, so I will stop sharing and I'm going to hand the ball over to you, Jim. Welcome.
All right. Welcome. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining, and thanks for that intro. Just a quick check. Are you seeing my screen? Got me, Mark? Okay, fantastic.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so Jim, my name is Jim Kalbach. I'm the chief evangelist at Mural. We're going to be using the tool, as Mark said. I've been with the company for 6 years, and prior to that, I worked in a lot of design and innovation teams. I'm also the author of 3 books. Designing Web Navigation reflects my background in product design. In 2016, I brought out a book called Mapping Experiences, of which there's a second edition that also just came out. So if you're a fan of mapping experiences, I have an updated version of that book. But today we wanted to talk about Jobs to be Done, a book that came out in April last year. And on the heels of that, I also put together an online resource called the Jobs to be Done Toolkit. We have some paid content there and some live courses, but there's also some free downloads and some resources there as well too. So if you go over to www.jtbdtoolkit.com, you can learn a little bit more. We're going to be continuing to add to this resource there as well too. So thanks everyone for joining. It's great to see people from around the world. And I know we've done a little bit of a check-in, but I'd like everybody to check in now and find the Zoom chat. So as Mark said, make sure you know where the mute button is and the chat, because the chat is the place where you can ask questions as well too. So I'd just like everybody to put in the chat just not only where you're from, but what that place is known for. It could be a food, it could be a location, I mean like a site or something like that. So I'm from Jersey City, New Jersey. I'm just gonna put that in the chat. And although the Statue of Liberty is technically in New York City, it's actually very close to the land here, and I can take my bike over to Liberty State Park. Kalamazoo beer, yeah. What do you got out there? Founders, right? Is that Bell's, right, in Kalamazoo?
Yeah, we have Bell's.
Bell's is out there. Blues Barbecue in Memphis. The guttural sound I like that one. Diamonds, seagulls.
Dracula.
All right. Windy City. There you go. This is going by really quickly here. Blues, Chicago blues too. A lot of blues. Wow, that's pretty amazing. Right. Good. It's nice to see that. Yeah, really a very diverse group here. I love it. Thanks everyone for coming. I wanted to take us on a very quick tour of Jobs to be Done. It's quite a complex field, and there's a lot to go over there. And we're just gonna dip our little pinky toe into it today. It's basically just gonna be a sample platter. And I wanted to do that by way of a couple of examples and then just focusing on a couple of techniques. So it's just gonna be a taste of Jobs to be Done today. And I want to start by asking a question to set up my example that I'm going to use. Now, if you're from America, you know the answer to this question, but I'll explain it for everybody else who doesn't know this joke. It's a joke that little kids tell themselves in the US. And they ask the question, why did the chicken cross the road? Anybody know the answer? Can you throw that in the chat? Why did the chicken cross the road? Anybody know? Get to the other side, right? The first time I used this example, I was in Germany, and I realized I was outing myself as an American to get to the dipping sauce, right? Yeah, and then there's all kinds of variations on the answer to this question. Again, it's a joke that we tell, kids tell themselves here in America, and the answer is to get to the other side. That there's no larger punchline to that. So it's just a simple little example, and I want to use this as a job to be done, right? Because we're going to be looking at chickens crossing the road, and if we say that the chicken's job is to cross the road, we can then start to frame jobs to be done in general. Just to let you know, there were no chickens were harmed in the making of this example here. So don't worry about flaming me on Twitter because I harmed chickens. And what I want to do is I want to compare what's called a customer journey map. I want to compare a customer journey map to something called a job map, just to show the different perspective that jobs to be done can bring to you. Who's familiar with a customer journey map? Just give me a quick show of hands here. Fair amount of folks. Yeah, it's a fairly common deliverable these days in marketing and product design and things like that. Basically, a customer journey map shows how your market would come and find your product and come to your product. So for this example, we have to imagine we work for the Acme Road Crosser, which makes an app that helps chickens cross the road. Here's my persona. We got Chucky the chicken. And then through research, I can distill my insights into a diagram. So a customer journey map is essentially a distilled version of insights represented as a diagram, which is chronological. So I have across the top here from left to right, a chronology and how chickens discover my app, how they learn about it and select it. And then I can look at the actions, thoughts, and feelings. I can see, the chicken goes from being unaware to curious to confident, and then they subscribe to our app. Right? Because we're a SaaS-based model. You have to pay a monthly fee to use our app. And then they onboard, they watch our onboarding video, they use the app to cross the road. And then, of course, the ultimate goal is to get a high score in NPS. They recommend it to our friends, right? So this is a typical story that we like to tell ourselves if we were the Acme Road Crosser in the form of a customer journey map. And don't get me wrong, this is an important view of that any company might want to have of its market. How do people find me? Why do they decide to use my solution? And then why do they stay loyal, right? If you look at the narrative here, though, it's really not a story about crossing the road. If that's the chicken's job is to cross the road, I know nothing about how to cross a road from this map, other than at this point, I know that the chicken uses my app to cross the road. That's all I know, right? If I zoom out, this is really my go-to-market story. If I'm the Acme Road Crosser company, this is my go-to-market story, right? It's a narrative about me. It's not about chickens. This is about me and my product and my brand, right? Which again is a very important perspective that a company should have, but let's not kid ourselves. We don't know how chickens actually cross the road. And what Jobs to be Done does, Jobs to be Done is a broad field that I believe brings a new perspective. It's a lens. And what it says is, without talking about myself, without talking about technology, how do we understand the behavior of our markets, right? And just let's compare this to a job map. So if I look at a job map, I have here, I have a sequence of steps. So I have my job performer here, and they want to cross a thoroughfare. Notice I didn't even say road, because I want to switch my perspective away from a specific solution. Maybe it's a bike path, maybe it's a ski slope. So the chicken wants to cross a thoroughfare, right? I'm not assuming, I don't have any bias or assumptions there. And I want to understand crossing the road. If that's the chicken's job to be done, I want to understand that first and foremost. So I can, through research, observing and talking to chickens, I can create a sequence of steps here. That the chicken decides to cross the road, determines which thoroughfare to cross, selects a point to cross, determine the time of day, assess the traffic, wait for the absence of traffic, confirm the absence of traffic, cross the thoroughfare, observe changes in traffic while crossing, adjust speed if needed, and then reach the other side, right? So this is a detailed view of the job of crossing the road. And notice there's no brand, there's no product. I don't care about subscription models or Facebook ads or NPS scores here. I want to understand the job independent of technology, right? It's about understanding the goal independent of the means. And that's what Jobs to be Done does as a whole. It brings a new perspective to the table and allows organizations to talk about the objectives that people have independent of technology, including your own technology, right? I like to sometimes describe Jobs to be Done with this quote from Theodore Levitt, famous business professor back in the 50s and 60s. And he used to tell his students, people don't want a 1/4 inch drill, they want a 1/4 inch hole. 1/4 inch is about 1/2 centimeter, I believe, for your folks who don't use inches. But basically what he was saying is that business growth and business opportunity can come from not only focusing on the means, you're the means. By the way, in this metaphor, the companies that you work for, you're the drill, right? Your company is the drill. What he's saying is flip the perspective and look at what people are trying to get done. Oh, they want a hole. Let's start there and build our business backwards, starting from the outcome and working back towards the technology, not the other way around. Right? So Jobs to be Done gives you this flip in perspective because what it allows us to do is to describe market behavior without talking about our own solution, without talking about our own technology. Companies are really good about talking about themselves, right? Developers and designers like to talk about the product. Marketing people like to talk about the brand. We're talking about ourselves the whole time. But what about the outcome that people want? What about the whole? What about crossing the road? And that's what Jobs to be Done allows us to do, is to describe that using a technique like a job map that I just showed above, which is basically a sequence of steps on how you execute the job. So in the Jobs to be Done Playbook, the last book that I wrote, what I wanted to do is actually recognize all of the great work that has been done in the field of Jobs to be Done and all of the techniques that practitioners and consultants and researchers have kind of developed over time. And here's just a list of some of them, and I cover these in the book. How you do research through interviewing, creating something like a job map, which we're going to look at in our exercise. Personas, writing job stories. That's another one I'm going to look at in a second as well too, but also using Jobs to be Done to help run marketing campaigns and customer success managers do onboarding and even developing a company strategy. You can look at Jobs to be Done. So it's a very broad field that has lots of different techniques and can be used, independent. So you can just use one technique, but you can also string them together in what I call a recipe and look at problems from, solving tactical problems all the way to strategic problems as well too. So it's a very, very broad field with lots of different techniques in there. The thing that holds it together for me, the thing that holds all of this together for me is this flip of perspective. Is that you're trying to describe human behavior without talking about your own technology or any technology for that matter, right? And as long as you're doing that, you have a little bit of what I call the Jobs to be Done mindset or Jobs to be Done thinking. And that's what we're going to try to do here in a second. But before I go over to the exercise, I just want to talk about one more technique. So we saw an example of a job map. A job map is essentially a series of steps that show how a job performer gets the job done in time chronologically. There's another technique out there called the job story, which has this format that looks like this. And this is a way that you can express pain points. Again, without talking about your own technology, you can use this little form here to say, when I'm in this situation, and here you can actually take the step from the job map and insert it right here. So when I'm trying to assess whether traffic is coming, right? I want to, and this is where there's an imperative that the job performer has back on the solution provider. What do they want? What's the thing that's going to overcome their pain point? And then what's the outcome that they want to get from that as well too? So the job story is a nice little format that allows you to describe pain points. So the Jobs to be Done field lets you do research. And then from that research, you can distill it into models like a job map. And then from that, you can pinpoint opportunities. And you can encapsulate those opportunities as a job story. So what's the design team going to work on? What's the marketing team going to work on? You can encapsulate that as a job story. Here's an example of one for our chickens crossing the road. When I'm selecting a point in the road to cross, so that's the step, right? That was one of the steps in my job map, and I can put that right there. I want to ensure I get the narrowest part. So the narrowest part, that's the imperative that the chicken has back on the solution provider, so that I can cross as quickly as possible. Now, all of this would come from research, and I realize you haven't done the research here. So let's just pretend that we did some research with chickens, and this was the biggest pain point that we found, and then I can encapsulate that as a job story. But you can also elaborate as well too, and you can try to bring in a little bit of empathy into your job stories, right? So when I'm selecting a point in the road to cross in the fog with my chicks, and again, that would come from research, right? You saw a chicken crossing the road with chicks in the fog, right? I want to ensure I get the narrowest and the flattest part so that I can cross as quickly as possible to avoid getting struck by traffic, right? So you can actually make these a little more descriptive and empathetic. But notice I don't really have any technology here, right? There's not, hey, fire up your app and, you know, log on to GPS and press a button. There's no solution here. You're describing the problem independent of the solution using the job story format. So that was a super quick tour of jobs to be done. And I want to work with job maps and job stories in a quick exercise. And I realize you got tons of questions about jobs to be done. And I'd be happy to take one or two before we break into breakout groups. But just know that jobs to be done is a way to talk about problems without talking about solutions. And that gives you new opportunities. You can gain new insight through that. Let me just zoom out here on this Mural canvas. If you're not familiar with Mural, it's a digital whiteboard. It behaves a lot like Google Maps where you zoom in and out. So if something's too small, that means you got to zoom in. And I just gave a little intro over here. And then we're going to be working with job maps and job stories. And what I have set up over here in number 3, we're going to invite everybody to this canvas. We're also going to put you into breakout groups, right? So you need to find the breakout group number that you're going to be assigned to, and then come over here into the canvas and you zoom and pan a lot like Google Maps, like I said, and then zoom into that section where you're going to work. So this is a workspace for your group. So here's group number 3, it's a green triangle. And there's 2 steps here. I want you to do 2 things. One is read the job map here for crossing the road. It's the same one that I went over. Determine the thoroughfare to cross, select the point to cross, and so forth. And individually, just take a minute or 2, individually pick one point that you think is the hardest for a chicken to accomplish. What's the hardest point here in this flow for chickens to accomplish? And do that individually. But ultimately, what I need your breakout group to do is find one spot here that you think is a hot spot. In other words, find one point that you want to focus on, right? And there are jobs to be done techniques where you can actually be more systematic about it. Right now, we're just going to be making assumptions that we did some observations and interviews with chickens, and that you would be able to find the hardest point here for chickens to cross the road. And then as a team, come up with one spot. That's step 1. Take about 5 minutes to do that. First working individually, then discussing as a group where you're going to focus on. And once you do that, move over to step number 2. It's right to the right there, which is to create a job story to express that pain point. So the first thing you want to do is say and then you can insert that job step right from the job map. You can insert it in here, but you can also embellish it with some circumstances like I did, the fog, the chicks, what's surrounding that step that's going to make it particularly hard to get done. And then the middle step here, and you can just click right into these fields and you can type right in here. This is kind of the demand or the capability that the chicken needs at that point in time without mentioning a feature, right? What's going to overcome that pain point? And then what's the outcome that they get from that as well too? So the job story format is very free form, so you can take liberties here as well too. But what we want to do is we want to look at crossing the road as a job map, find the hot spot, find the biggest pain point, and then encapsulate that pain point as a job story. Can't use any technology. If you use any technology, I'm going to fly in and tell you can't use technology, right? You're not allowed to use technology.
Awesome.
That's what I usually do. I usually have a ruler right here, Mark, and I hit people on their knuckles, virtual knuckles, when they use technology here.
Nice. So Jim, do you want us to share the link to the mural now?
Yeah, you can share the link to the mural. So you're all going to come in as an anonymous animal. This is what we call the visitor link in Mural. You can name yourself or you can stay anonymous. But you're going to see at the bottom of this canvas, you're going to see folks start coming in here. And then Mark's going to hit the button on the breakout rooms, and we're going to go in the breakout room. So the first thing you need to do is find the spot on this canvas that corresponds to your breakout room. And then I'm going to come around as well too, but it's basically those 2 steps. Agree on a hotspot in the job map that you want to focus on. That's your biggest pain point. And then write that as a job story using the format that I gave you. And then when we come back, I can answer some questions, and I'm going to go over a couple of the examples as well too.
So we'll hold the questions until when we come back, or did you?
You know what? Just for clarification, Mark, maybe we can take a question or 2 now. Like I said,
clarification.
I wrote a whole book on this. People have been practicing jobs to be done for their whole lives. I have a 2-day course on this topic, and I went over it in about 10 minutes. So if you feel like that was a fire hose of information, it was. But my goal in this session is let's just do something first, right? So let's just jump in and do it, and then we can talk on the other side. But are there any questions for clarification right now? And I don't know how you usually do questions there. I saw Zemia's hands first. Did I say your name right, Zemia?
Shimina. Well, we can take 1, maybe 2 questions as long as the responses are fairly quick. Jimena.
No, it's Jimena. Thank you. No, I was just like saying again what we were going to do. So we have to check on the breakout room. Thank you for sharing. I'll try to be quick. Breakout room, check the number, and then step 1, go through the map, right, and then write it down. Correct?
Yep. Yeah.
So we'll do it together.
That's a great question, Jimena. So what we're going to do is I'm assigning everybody to a breakout room. When you get in that room, the name of the breakout room is going to be something like a black number 9 black square, right? And you'll see number 9 in a black square on the mural. That's where you go to work, and you'll meet your breakout room mates there, and then you'll just follow the instructions.
Cool. And then it's going to be really small, so you have to zoom way in. It's like Google Maps. Like, you know, I'm looking at the continent right now. You need to go down to the street level, so you're going to be zooming in and out a lot.
Cool. So are we ready?
Yeah.
So I'm going to hit the hyperspace button. Excuse me.
All right. Beam me up, Scotty. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to put everybody in breakouts, and the main room people, anybody who goes into breakout room 12, we're going to bring you back out into the main room, and you'll be with us in this room. Okay. All right. See you guys in about 15 minutes. We'll let you know a minute before.
How do we know what's my breakout room? Where can
You'll know because you'll be there. Is the answer to that question. If let's see, Mona, I'm going to assign you to a team here. You're going to go to 6. And cool. All right, Nachiket. Something breakouts. I want to move to all right.
We're in the lower right-hand corner.
All right, cool.
Just take a minute. Everybody grab a star and read the job map and think about what spot we want to focus on. What problems do we want to solve for the chicken, in other words?
Okay, sorry, I had to move you guys back to the main session here.
Yep, no worries.
Cool.
Hi, James.
I'm going to switch on the time for you, Mark.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Jim. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Let's just do individual voting at first with the stars. You can grab a star over here on the right.
And so what triangle, what symbol, what none, 1, 2, so we had 12?
12, correct.
All right, okay, good.
Was that you, Thomas, that just expanded all the stars?
No. I already made my vote, so.
Okay. Somebody just put them into a row, like an advanced feature inside. Oh, somebody just made a grid over here too. That was good. I got a mural pro in group 11. I wonder who that is.
just always grab the top one and just push it over. So.
Hi, Mark. When the breakouts happened, I got dropped. I just rejoined.
Okay, well, if you go to room 12, you're just going to stay in here. Okay, James?
Okay.
You'll be part of our team.
Nice.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So Jim, you're going to facilitate us?
Yeah, a little bit here. I'm just giving people a chance to absorb the job map and to select a point in the road to cross. Obviously, this is an example that, you know, has no, it's not supposed to be real, right? We're supposed to be using our fantasy here a little bit. The last time I did this, I had somebody who actually knew a lot about chickens and started criticizing it. Well, the chickens don't cross the road. It's like, no, don't look at it that way, right? We're just making broad generalizations here, right? This isn't supposed to be based on hard data. What's that?
Chicken empathy.
You know? Yeah, well, I know, and no, that wouldn't happen, you know. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah. So let's pretend though that we did actually do research on our market, which in this case is chickens trying to cross the road, and we did research, so we know that this is a valid job map.
Yeah.
All right.
Time of day.
So we just need to pick one, right? So,
yeah, as a group. So we have a little bit of heat here around assessed traffic, but then there's a little bit of scattering too. I'd be happy to go to assess traffic too. Cross the thoroughfare.
Yeah, I think anytime the chicken's life is in danger, that's when the stress is going to be the highest.
Right. Okay. I think so.
Yeah.
So it's either when they're actually crossing or looking left and right as they're going across the, you know.
Yeah, that's why I had the observe. I put it on observe changes while crossing, right? Because you might be like, oh, I'm good to go, but then you're not, right? That's another stressful moment.
Chickens are like that. I think that's where your chicken guy
it's
would
really
say
annoying. I know.
I can really feel the chicken mind thinking, am I going to go or not? Or should I spend a little more observing or thinking? Shall I go right foot first or left foot?
Anything like a squirrel. I mean, squirrels and chickens must have the same sort of brain size.
There you go. So it looks like we're converging around the assessed traffic point. Like we want to solve for that, right? You guys agree on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of multitasking around assessing for traffic. So it's not even just doing the action, but it's also behavioral. So, you know, you have to multitask on all levels.
Well, you know what? Let's go over to the job story because that's a great point, Anupa. And that's what we can put in our job story. We can do that. So I'm just going to get us started. So when I'm assessing traffic before crossing, and what I would do is I would, right at the end of that sentence, if you want to click in there, Anupa, you can add some of that context around and multitasking or something. That's a great point. Something like that, right? Do you want to add that? There you go.
Yeah.
And let me check with you, Jim. The I here is I, the chicken. It's not I, the human. Huh?
This is always. Here's the thing. It's always from the individual's point of view. And notice I didn't say customer or user. It's a human being. It's an individual. That's who we're trying to describe their behavior. In this case, it's chickens. So when I chicken, I'm assessing traffic before crossing. So what's the getting more specific? What's the thing that the chicken wants? What does it really need to know to solve that problem?
I think discover patterns, right? So, you know, if there's like specific times where it's high traffic or low traffic,
right?
If there's maybe a specific pattern, maybe due to traffic lights before the spot I cross, you know, because if you assess right, you know, you can avoid a lot of dangers afterwards.
Right. Yeah. I love the lights thing. I mean, from the first thing I thought of was gap. Like, I think what the ability that chicken needs, correct me if I'm wrong, Thomas, is they need to know when there's a gap big enough to cross the road, right? That's the thing that's missing, right?
And that might come, you know, if there's a traffic light
somewhere.
Are we assuming that they've crossed the road before, so they know they look for gaps because they could be looking for anything?
Yeah, that's a good question. Our research would have told us that.
Okay.
So we can make up an answer to that answer. Okay. What do you think, Jens?
No, I just, you know, like how abstract do we want it? Of course, you need to have some kind of
Yeah.
world that you. Okay,
Exactly.
fine.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All
It
right.
brings up a good point because jobs to be done does you have to work with abstraction. We have 7 minutes here to solve this problem, so let's not be too abstract. That's what.
No. I get it. I get it. Yeah.
So I have a question, Jim.
Yeah.
So at this point, instead of saying when I want to cross the road, I want to assess traffic, you're going beyond that.
Starting with the step, right? I want to go.
Yeah.
I want to go one step deeper. Yeah.
Okay, so that's an important thing, is to know like what level you're starting at, right?
Right. So we've already defined crossing the road is the thing that we want to understand.
Okay.
We want to innovate. That's where we want to innovate. Within crossing the road, though, we've prioritized assessing traffic. And then through our research, we've found that finding that gap, that pattern, as Thomas was saying. So I want to be able to find patterns that show gaps. Does somebody want to type that in here? You guys can grab control here.
Sure.
This is participatory. This is the hands-on part of the program today. And then Anupa, did you want to add your comment about multitasking?
Yeah, so I think that could come under I want, because it's an action that the chicken has to kind of interact with. So it's not a thought, it's more of an action. So it could go into the want, but then there are also a lot of other things that the chicken wants to do. So should we use multitasking as an overall adjective for anything that we're talking about now?
I would. Well, one thing that you have to do with these three sentences is you kind of have to balance the information that you're packing into it. And I would say we're probably better off just mentioning multitasking once. It can appear in any of these things, but maybe we can even offload it to the so that. It's so that I don't get killed. But can we get more specific there? And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Anupa, but it's so that I can focus while I'm multitasking or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Help me focus on the thing that matters, which is crossing the road, right? So there's I think the other side of multitasking is focus, right? We're focusing on one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would take that. Whoever put so I don't get killed in the I want, that goes actually on the second line.
So I can.
Does that make sense? Yeah, you can make notes around here too.
Yeah, that was me. I'm a bad student.
There you go. Yeah.
But I learned from my mistakes.
No worries. Yeah, that's why.
Oh, then you're a good student. Yeah.
I didn't see the next step. I wasn't reading ahead because I'm not that kind of student.
That was a good comment.
Mark, are you one of the backbenchers then?
I usually don't sit in the front. I sit in the back.
I sit in the back, but I'm also the person that'll grab the pen and go right to the board as well too.
Yeah,
all the way from the back. I'll sit in the back and then go all the way to the board and write my idea and then go back.
Right. I like to be back there with the cool kids on the back row. That's always the fun part.
Yeah.
Where you can be talking and the teacher doesn't hear you, all that kind of stuff.
Right. So that I can join my girlfriend. That's more aspirational. If we've scoped it to crossing the road and then we scoped it down even further to assessing traffic, what's the outcome of assessing traffic that you want? I think joining your girlfriend on the other side is more aspirational for why you want to cross the road in the first place. We're trying to get more specific. And the reason we're trying to get more specific is because we need to hand this user story off to a marketing manager or a designer or a product manager who's going to then take it and build a solution off of it, right? And I don't know about, I've worked in anybody work in product development before, right? You're sitting there trying to design something and you get this brief that you're like, I can't work with this brief. Like, there's no problem here for me to solve in your brief. So we want to be very, very specific so that an annoying UX designer is not going to come back to us and ask us for more information. And I say they're annoying lovingly. I used to be a UX designer and I feel like I can say they're annoying because they are, because as a designer, you're taught to say, why do you want that? What are you trying to, what problem are you trying, right? So we want to do as much of that here in the job stories as possible so that everybody downstream from me in the development cycle and the marketing cycles, they don't have to ask again, why, right? We're trying to answer that, right? And presumably this is based on research too, right? So this would be a distillation of our research and then it carries all the way through downstream. and then there's rainbows and unicorns at work, and nobody has any questions or problems anymore. No, it's not a panacea. It's not, but it would help. Yeah. So who wants to read this? I did put, Anup, and I have a lot on my mind in the context piece up front of when I'm just for a little more empathy.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you, Jim. So when you're doing a user story such as this, how would you divide? Because I'm guessing so that is the desired outcome, right? So how do you differentiate between empathy, intent, and let's say situation? So where would you put these three
I would
adjectives?
put the situation is usually the first one. So the first one, in fact, sometimes I use the word circumstance up there. You can't see it anymore because we typed over it. But that's all the context that you need to know and to understand the outcome that they want. And then the thing that's in the middle that holds it together, I call that the ability, the capability that the chicken currently doesn't have, or that makes it hard. So there was something that makes assessing traffic hard, and it's the ability to find the patterns in the traffic that are gaps. Right. And then why do you want that? Yeah, I feel safe is too generic for me. So I can focus on the task at hand while I'm multitasking. That's more specific. So there's lots of different desired outcomes here, but we want to get more specific, I believe. All right. And we got 30 seconds left, Mark, here.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to kill the breakout groups now.
I can do that. Yep.
Okay.
You ready?
Sure.
I will close the rooms.
Thanks, everybody.
Closing the rooms now.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank
you. So Jim, is that correct? What I wrote down here on the right, the circumstances or the context and situation, what makes it hard or the challenge, and then the end goal?
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct.
Cool.
Yeah,
right.
and I had something like that in here before we typed over it, but yeah, it was essentially that. Yeah. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back.
All right, we're bringing everybody back.
Thanks for sending those links out again.
Welcome back, everybody. So that was fun.
That was a quick sample platter of some jobs to be done activities. I kind of warned you it was going to be quick, but that's okay. I just want to make one more point. I want to kind of reiterate what just happened here, and then let's have some discussion. And what I'd like to do, Mark, is actually take a couple of examples, and then we can look at some of the examples that people had. Right? But what we're trying to do is we're trying to observe the behavior of the markets, of the people that we're trying to serve in our target markets. We're trying to understand that behavior and describe it back to my organization in a way that does not reference any technology or solutions, right? We're trying to describe the behavior as such in a way that is then actionable for the rest of my company, right? And Jobs to be Done gives us the ability to do that research. It also gives us the language to filter out the things that matter, and then also to create what I call a model. Like a job map is a model, a persona is a model. It's a way to model that behavior so that you can have a conversation. Where do we want to affect? What's our point of intervention? Where's our trigger? Where's our opportunity for innovation, right? Which is kind of what we did with that job map discussion. And then Jobs to be Done goes even further, and it helps us design products. It helps us market them. And there's lots of techniques to do that. We just picked on one, a job story, which is kind of like a brief. You can think about it like we did the research and we found this pain point. Now we have this little brief, a description of that pain point that we can hand off to design and development teams or marketing teams. So we're getting more specific. But I see Jobs to be Done as a way to describe a problem independent of a solution first, right? And that's a really important perspective to bring into your organizations. So that was just a recap of the first part there. What I'd like to do now is see if anybody wanted to volunteer. Does any group want to volunteer sharing their job story? Either you struggled with it or you have a really good job story and you're just dying to share it with everybody. Any group want to volunteer?
I think we can go ahead.
Who's this?
We are 4 Diamond.
4 Diamond. I am sharing my screen. Okay, great, fantastic. So I'm just going to zoom in on your job map. It looks like you had some heat down here around adjusting speed.
Yes.
Okay. So then you're 4 diamonds. So here you go. You want to read it off first?
Yeah, it's when I need to adjust speeds while crossing the street.
Yeah.
I want to be able to quickly assess the traffic, incoming traffic, so that we can get safe on the other side of the street.
Okay. Yeah. There's a so the format is okay and the language is good. I would the only thing I would point out here is it kind of circles back on itself. Like we didn't uncover new information here because we already know that the chicken wants to cross the road. That's our frame of innovation. We already know that. So you mentioned crossing the street here, and then you mentioned it down here as well too. So my question was, can we be more specific? Right. So we already know the chicken wants to cross the road. What's the outcome inside of adjusting speed that the chicken has, right? What's the importance about adjusting speed, right? There's an important decision there. Do I go back? Do I go forward? How fast do I go? So I'm just making this up. So I adjust my speed so that I know how much faster I have to move to cross the road, right? That's the more specific example there. Yeah, cool.
Thank you. Does location also matter? Like if I want to say, it could matter.
It could. It depends on your research. So I threw you into this exercise and you hadn't interviewed any chickens or observed any chickens, right? So we're kind of making it up anyway. But presumably you would have seen that. What are the most important factors? And that's really what this is. Job speed is like a big filter. It's a language and it's a big filter to observe human behavior, which is messy, right? People don't think and talk in this way. When you go out and talk to people, they don't talk in this way. You have to pass it through a filter and then distill out what matters. So presumably you would have known what matters from your research. And then you put this into your job story, which then others can read off of almost as like a mini brief, right? My observation with this particular one is it actually goes up, right? Because you say, I need to adjust my speed so that I can get to the other side, but we already know that. I would go down in granularity so I can adjust my speed, right? So I know how much faster I have to run, right? Or whether I need to go back or not even, right? That's the outcome of this step, right?
One question, if I go back to your, if you see the whole activity thing, like the whole process, do you think most of the, as going on granularity is mostly towards the initial side, towards the beginning of the map? Because when I was reading those things, most of the things were on the beginning, like it's like, okay, where do you choose the point?
It depends on the field. It depends on the field. And if you do a job map in different fields, you're going to find there's different patterns, right? For instance, at Mural, I've done some of this kind of work at Mural, and I found the bigger pain points are on the end of our job map, which is running a workshop, right? If one of our target jobs is running a workshop like this, what we found is more pain at the end. I was just doing, what was I looking at? I forget the field I was looking at. Like submitting travel expenses, right? If you do a job map around, it's actually, everything's up front. So it depends on the field to where your heat's going to be. And that's why you do a job map. You create a job map because that's going to ensure that your research is complete and you're looking at the entire job, first of all, right? So that when you're going out and doing research, you're asking the right questions and you're getting a complete set of steps and needs that people want. And then what it also allows you to do is to prioritize and say, in our field, it's the upfront thing that we have to solve. In our field, it's the, or with our solution, it's the thing at the end. So it's not, you're never going to know, right? You can actually take this back out to the market. And if your team doesn't know, ask the job performers to rate which one is the hardest to get done, right? And you can take it back out to the market and do it that way as well.
So Jim, I have a question that maybe some of my colleagues who are also in the sort of innovation space, design thinking, what we just went through is a really focused grain, right, of the whole design process, right? And we started with that first step, which is something that you would have put together based on research, right, to understand it's kind of process oriented, right? So you're kind of going to that technical thinking space, right? And yet it's based on empathy. So there's this constant sort of, oh yeah, we have to remember we're talking about humans and not just squares in a flow diagram.
Right.
And then we go into the granular job, and we can go up and down in the level of grain, and that takes practice, and it's a kind of an art, I suppose.
Right.
How do you fit jobs to be done in the larger context of designing? Jump up 30,000 feet and tell us how, from a process standpoint, you're taking on a new engagement with a client. Where do you use it, and what do you blend it with in terms of other methodologies?
Well, first of all, it doesn't necessarily replace the other techniques and methods and workflows that you have. I see jobs to be done as a layer. It's a way of thinking that you can integrate into things like design thinking, lean, and agile, right? You can integrate it into you're already doing research, Mark, right? Because you told me it's design thinking. Add some questions about the process, add some questions about the outcomes so that you can extract those things from your data. So I think it fits into those things up front, first of all, but it's also a layer that you don't have to throw away design thinking. You can bring it in.
No, right.
Where I think it complements are things like pinpointing the need that you're going to move forward with. And I've been looking recently, Mark, at design thinking literature, and it basically says, find a need that you guys agree on. This gives you a little bit more rationale, right? We looked at all of the steps and we want to pinpoint this and the circumstances that are relevant there. Let's encapsulate that as a job story. Okay, now we go off and ideate. And then we build, measure, learn, and then we go into agile sprints from there. So yeah, it is very specific, but I think it's at a key hinge in the design and innovation process when it's what problem are we going to go after as a group of people right now. So it's right at that crux right there.
Yeah. So when I started researching this initially, the whole jobs thing, it was like Stratogen and the ODI method, and it gets almost like it, because I was originally trained as an engineer, it kind of really fired up that side of my brain, right? Like, or that way of thinking, because it gets super technical, right?
Yeah, right.
Almost at the expense of losing track of like a human and a persona that you're working with.
Agree. And you know, I'm influenced from some of that thinking as well too. But I also want to back it up and say you can also just do one activity. You can use job stories to express pain points that maybe came from somewhere else, or you can try to string these things together. It can also be qualitative. It doesn't have to be quantitative. So for me, that's the thing that's important is the job's mindset or the job's thinking, which is have I identified the thing that the human being that I'm trying to serve wants to get done independent of my technology, or am I just thinking they want to use me more? I need to make my product better, right? So it's that thinking.
How do you transition this identification of the jobs into the ideation? What is the transition?
I think a key point in that transition is a job story, because a job story now you can turn into a how might we statement, or you could bring it into the beginning of an agile sprint and say, guys, this sprint, we're trying to solve the problem of assessing traffic. And what they want to do when they're assessing traffic is keep all the distractions away and find a gap, right? It's about, how can we help chickens find that gap, right? So it gets more, it's a more specific brief.
Super helpful.
Let's look at one more example, Mark, just to spur some of this conversation. I hope this is helpful. Have I lost everybody, Mark?
I think they all left.
Everybody left. I still have people here. Okay, great. Thanks.
We are concentrating on all these chickens, walking up and down and crossing the roads, and
We ended up on the other side of the road.
Can I get another volunteer group?
Yeah. How about number 2?
Number 2, orange square.
Go number 2.
There you go.
The chat asked for, in the chat, there was asking for number 6.
Number 2 wins, I think.
But let's go to number 2, and then if we have time, we'll go over to number 6. But group number 2, it looks like you had the observed changes in traffic while crossing. And again, we just kind of intuited this, like we just blurted out some stars here. You can make this a lot more systematic. You can even go back out and ask the chickens where their pain point is. So we just kind of did this as an exercise, right? And I hope you had some nice conversations. One thing I love about this is that sometimes you get into debates. Like I've peeked into breakout groups in the past, and the team is debating. It's like, guys, there's no chickens. We're not, this doesn't exist, but you spurred this conversation. That I think that's really important to have a tool and have a way to talk about objectives and outcomes that people want independent of your technology that spurs conversation, right? Just having that conversation is really, really healthy inside of your organization. So group number 2, it sounds like you wanted to go after observing changes in traffic while crossing. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So if I slide over here, the first thing you do is, yeah, exactly right. You put in that thing right here, right? You can also append some other things on here too that came from your research. Whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to click on that. But this is okay like this. So when I observe changes in traffic while crossing, do you want to read the rest of it? Tripura, is that it?
Yeah, sure. I want to assess how much time
Yeah.
I have to cross.
Right, exactly. That's what I was just making up in my head. So you guys thought about it a little longer than I did and came up with almost the same thing. Right.
So that I arrive on the other side unharmed.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. I would go down from here, because we already know that the chicken wants to cross the road without getting harmed, right?
Mhm.
If I'm thinking about observing changes in traffic, so I know how much time I have left to cross, what's the outcome that I want? It's so that I can speed up or slow down if necessary, right? Something like that. I think it's okay to have this here. I mean, here's what I might do. I'm just going to get in here so that I can speed up if needed and arrive on the other side unharmed. You can do it like that. So you have both the specific and the general one there. The general one, it really just gives us a little bit more empathy, right? You could even say arrive on the other side with all my feathers intact, right? Get even more empathetic there, right? Because chickens have feathers and my wings don't get damaged. Like you can get even more specific there.
Okay.
But otherwise a good example. Thanks for that. And then we wanted to go over to number 6. So I'm just going to scooch down here to number 6.
Go 6. Go 6.
Go 6. Who spoke up for 6 there? Who wanted to go over this one? Somebody spoke up on. Joe?
Joey? Yeah. Joe.
Yeah. Okay. So we decided to focus on assessing the traffic.
Yeah.
We believe this is something very hard to achieve.
Right. Exactly.
So again, when I want to assess the traffic, I want to know how much time exactly I have between cars so I can cross, so that I cross safely with my little chicks.
With the chicks. Okay, that's good. Okay, that's good.
But we assume we should have different outcomes for different steps.
There might be outcomes that are kind of overarching and the outcomes may or may not align to a step. I think in the context of a job story though, we want to be able to encapsulate that pain point in a way that I can hand it over to somebody else and they can read it and go, yep, okay, I know what to do with that. I'm either going to design a solution or build a solution or market or sell a solution, right? Because this could go into sales as well too. So I can cross safely with my chicks. Okay, the chicks is a nice little empathetic thing there. I would say, what's the more specific outcome that maps to assessing the traffic? And you can include both, like I just did in that last example. But we're at a point, as Mark was talking about, where we're trying to understand the problem independent of itself. But eventually, we need to create a solution. And we're kind of right at that tipping point. So I think the more specific you are going into solution space, the better. That's just a rule of thumb.
So probably it should be a bit different.
Maybe down here. I mean, you can leave this here so that I would just be the more specific one so that I can. I mean, you might even want to put here like, it's about confidence, right? You need to take that step. You need to take that first step.
Yep.
Step and cross safely with my little chicks. Like it can be long like that. It can have multiple things in there like that, right? Because now if I'm a designer, it's like, oh, it's about giving the chicken confidence, right? Oh, therefore I need the screen on the app to glow green and say, go, large, right? It's like, or whatever. I'm just making that up. But if I were a designer, now I can imagine a solution behind this, right? Because it's just a little bit more specific, right?
Absolutely.
The only other thing I might want to quibble about is cars. I use the word traffic, and we're assuming it's a road, and the picture I had was like a road with cars on it. You might just want to be a little bit more generic.
Vehicles or whatever.
Yeah, moving vehicles or something like that. Because it might be a motorcycle, might be a bike, might be a skateboard,
Yeah.
It's not just cars. Cars are the big problem though, because they're moving the fastest, right?
What about
maybe even I put that here,
Eagles?
the fastest moving vehicles.
Cool.
And I could put e.g. cars, motorcycles. I could even get more specific like that.
Excellent.
There you go. There's my sample platter for jobs to be done. Thanks for playing along, everybody.
Nice.
And I know, again, this was really, really, really quick, but I wanted us to do something hands-on to get us to a hands-on point really quickly.
Really, really helpful, actually, because I think now we can, as we wrap up the formal session and we go into the backstage, anybody here is certainly welcome to do that. And Jim, if I could just grab control of the screen sharing.
Okay.
And
let me just show one more thing before we do that, Mark. Over here on the right side of the canvas, if you're still in the canvas, if you go over to the right side, you'll see I have a rose thorn bud. The roses are the things that resonated with you. The thorns are the things that raised your eyebrow and gave you pause. And then the buds are ideas that you have. What I'd actually like to do with the buds are what's your takeaway? Something that you'll take away from the session as well, too. So with that, I'll give it back over to you, Mark.
Awesome. Love the RTB feedback. That's such a great, simple framework to use.
Yeah.
And with that, I just want to close out because what we like to try to do in Wednesday Web Jam is start at the top of the hour and end at the top of the hour. But we do have another half an hour where Jim's going to hang out and we can just kind of have a more of a free-flowing conversation with Jim and pick his brain. But to preview next week, we have Axel Klimek, who is the author of the book that we reviewed a couple of weeks ago, Parachuting Cats into Borneo. Axel, are you here still?
Axel was here.
I am here.
There you are.
There he is.
Or I'll hand it over to you and you and Steve, Axel.
Okay.
Give us a preview of what to expect next week.
Yeah, Axel, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, yes, I'm very excited to be there because I was very happy to see, I think 2 weeks ago, that you were talking already about the book, and now I would like to give you some further background. So I will explain a little bit why only 1/3 of all change processes are successful, what we mean with that, and that is very often that we focus on technical aspects, but not the human side. And I will go into that. Then there will be a little interviews or questions you can have if you have read the book. And at the end, I would like to give you an exercise, which we will be doing in order to, what you can do to increase your own ability to work with more complex systems. So that is the plan. And if you want, there's a little video, I think we have not mentioned it here, on YouTube, where you can have a little look at the structure, on what it means, parachuting cats into Borneo, about this story.
Cool.
We
Awesome.
can share that. We'll put that link up.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Axel. We're looking forward to that next week. I would like to formally thank Jim. Fantastic job. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you back again, and we'll jump over into the backstage. But before we do that, one of my colleagues is going to pop our social media stuff into the chat. Please join us, become part of our village. And if you're really interested, you can jump in and volunteer and help. This is a volunteer run. Failing forward, there is no other way. Right, Yunyan? Okay, cool. So I think we are officially going to go into the backstage. I'm going to stop the YouTube and